All right, let's get this show on the road. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, music, movies, games, so much good stuff. Cliff Broadway, your normal host, hopefully will be here. He's having some internet issues, as we all do from time to time. So if his internet stabilizes, I will see him join, and then we can bring him in. And I really want to have Clifford on the show too, because we were going to talk about so much stuff. There's so much news going on. There is a writer strike that just started today. I have so much information about that. We have updates on War of the Rohirrim. There's just so much. So while we get the show going, maybe Cliff will show up. I'm looking at the chat room. Hello, everybody. I see Nigel and Sean, Imran, Kay. Hello, Kay Griffin, a long time listener. XOXO. I see Arovande. I just love that we have so many regulars on the show. Some have been watching a decade or more. In fact, that's how a lot of people have discovered the One Ring. The girls at the Happy Hobbit, Kelly and Alex, first discovered us streaming Torn Tuesday. And, next thing you know, they're part of the Torn family. And they're doing panels with us at Comic-Con. And then Kelly's writing a book with Weta Workshop on the history of the making of Middle-earth. So this community is just amazing, and I'm always pleasantly surprised at the ingenuity of the fans in whatever capacity, whether it's party decorations for an Oscar party or the cosplay we see constantly, or even these little crochet hats that's a fan sent to me saying that they made this while watching our show over a few weeks. So I'm just thankful. If you guys ever get inspired with anything Hobbity, crochet or otherwise, and you want to send some artwork or posters or whatever you want, even a nice little greeting card, Clifford and I love receiving this, and you can send anything to Scum and Villainy Cantina in Hollywood, California. Just look it up, Scum and Villainy Cantina in Hollywood, California, and it all gets to us. Remember, we still do the show on occasion at Scum and Villainy, but, since pandemic and everybody got their act together with this streaming, we started doing this more often. I guess the question to the chat room I have is, what do you guys prefer? I think we have a lot more control when we do these virtual streams, and I can bring up pictures from the web. Like when you guys are talking about something in the chat, I can look it up, and then it's kind of like, who are some Twitchers, big Twitchers that do that stuff where they just sit and stream and bring up browser windows and pictures, like Hassan and a bunch of others. I kind of like that format, but do you guys like it? Would you rather see me and Cliff back at the cantina in front of a studio audience, and the energy and the environment around the cantina? It's a different dynamic when we're face to face, like we were with Nerd of the Rings a couple weeks ago. So it's just a different energy. I think both versions of this show are interesting to produce, but I want to know what you, the chat room, like to enjoy. I personally like this as the producer. I like this format here because I don't have to travel, and when there's a lot of news, I can bring up all the photos that I want, and we've got some photos, we've got some links, we've got some articles, we've got some proof. We've got so much stuff, which we wouldn't be able to do at the cantina, but the cantina just is a different dynamic when you're talking with each other. And speaking of talking with each other, look who just jumped on. There he is, the man, the mystery, the legend, the producer, and co-writer of Ringer's Lord of the Fans, the #1 documentary about Lord of the Rings fandom since 1930s all the way to the 2000s.
And dynamic group of fans still responding to adaptations of J.R.R. Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings. And here we are. You can't hear me? It says they can't hear a word.
I got you now. I figured it out. There we go.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, anyways, as I was just saying,
the journey never ends.
I'll just say it one more time. It looks like it's a job that's never done because, I thought that we could finish the job looking at pop culture responding to J.R.R. Tolkien from about 1930s to the 2000s. But here we are decades later, and we're still a very active and robust, dynamic fan community, still having a lot to respond to as more J.R.R. Tolkien hits the bookshelves long after the author's death, and more adaptations are coming out, and games and shows and movies, and good God, the job is never over. It's never over.
I want to ask you specifically about Rings, but before that, did you catch the question I was asking the chat room before you jumped on?
Oh, about the format of the show. Yes.
Yeah. What do you personally prefer, Clifford?
Well, I always prefer being in person with a live audience because there's nothing else like that. And I also understand the point that you made, and that was a very good point, that you prefer not having to travel back into town, and you can have access to what you call your producer's bat cave. I consider that you're in Bruce Wayne's bat cave where you are right now, but it's all about you having access to the links, the video, the playback, and the other supplementary materials that you're trying to present as part of the show. But, for my ticket, for my money, there's nothing like having a live audience.
So I like the idea that a couple people in the chat room have presented, which is, what if we do one show a month? We just commit to at least one show a month at the cantina and bring back that dynamic, because it is a different dynamic. I'll admit it is between us, let alone the audience in front of us. So
yes,
maybe we should.
Yes, the answer is yes. Absolutely.
There you go.
In case you guys aren't looking around, there you go. This is the answer. By all means, why don't we do at least once a month so that we can give the folks at home a chance to come and be on the show live right with us, right when we're doing it? Why not?
All right, I like that idea from the chat room. So we'll work on that. We'll work on doing at least one show a month on a regular basis. Maybe some of you will want to come join, but I think just the dynamic of being in the space at the cantina would be fun. Cliff, this week is a huge week for the cantina because it's May the 4th.
On Thursday, and I never work. I never work on a Thursday. Do you know what I'm usually doing? I'm usually sending you messages from Disneyland, which is me going to my happy place. Now on Thursday, I'm going to be at the cantina at 9:30 in the morning because they're opening the business at 10 a.m. to get the celebration started that morning.
Do you remember when LA opened after a whole year of being shut down, stay at home? Do you remember how we celebrated the first May the 4th reopening post close down?
Tell me.
We had singing hobbits at the
I knew you were going to
cantina.
tell me that. That was the
Billy
best
and
comeback.
Dom
That was the
was
comeback.
it
Yes.
was not only the best comeback, it is a reason to keep doing the
Yes.
show there. And that is a memory I hope a lot of you in the chat room were here for live. I know a lot of you showed up in person here in LA. And it was just one of the most magic moments that we've ever had in the history of Torn. Being at the Star Wars at Scum and Villainy Cantina on May the 4th with
Yes.
Billy and Dom singing
Yes.
drunken Hobbit songs.
Yes, wasn't it fantastic though? There's something special about those two boys. They're quite special, aren't they? And
I'm gonna have
hey,
to dig up the video that we took on
yes,
that day and post it on Thursday because it's forever and always. It'll be the best May the 4th post we will ever do.
I agree. I totally agree. And you know, it's even better. What's even better is that we didn't expect or know anything like that was going to happen. That's the element of doing a live show right there. When you don't know when these magical alchemy moments are going to happen. Exactly. So,
This is true. Well, we've got a lot of news to cover and a lot of context to provide. And because fans in our Discord have been asking all day today, how should fans feel about the strike that's going on? Whose side are we on? What's good, what's bad, what's indifferent? We'll get into that, but we've got some breaking news. Breaking news, Cliff. And I sent you
here it
this
is.
earlier today.
Oh, yes, you did send this to me.
Gollum was found on the LA subway. An LAPD officer is hospitalized after his finger bitten off by a homeless person at our subway station. Wait, no, that's not. No, I don't know why they have a picture of King Charles.
That's King Charles right there.
As Gollum in LA. Jeez. All right.
That's quite funny. That's really funny.
Well, Amazon's back on their marketing thing because an influencer, we have no reports of any other influencer, but one influencer that writes for Looper.com, who's been very pro Rings of Power and pro Amazon over the last 6 months, received this on Arbor Day, which was last Friday or Saturday.
Ooh.
He got a tree.
Ooh.
A tree from Rings of Power, and it says, a seedling of our great tree in Linden, the very symbol of our people's strength and vitality. A quote from Elrond. On behalf of Lord of the Rings of Power, trees are planted where they are needed. So this was a wonderful marketing. So it's never, what I'm saying, folks, is it's never too late to start becoming an influencer for Rings of Power. And this is why we enjoy all of our friends who love Lord of the Rings with all of their passion and have found ways to enjoy Rings of Power while maybe also having some thoughtful feedback on the show. There are always reasons to love the show, and there's no need to constantly hate. If you also want to get more Rings of Power, Cliff, are you going to go with me to this free screening of the Rings of Power episode 1 and 2 this weekend in Los Angeles?
Oh, this is one of those big for your consideration screenings, isn't it?
This is.
It's very exciting. You know, if it were not for the fact that I have a bride and groom who need my services as a minister, I will be hundreds of miles away in Temecula, way, way down in the mountains of Orange County. Maybe I can undo a dry lake bed with an old broken sword, and maybe I can get some volcanoes to start working while I'm down there. But I'm sorry that I will not be able to come and join you for the screening. But this is the exciting part. They are bringing out celebrity appearances from the cast members of the Rings of Power. They're bringing out all kinds of goodies. They're going to show some special stuff, not just showing a couple of the episodes that they want to get for Emmy Awards consideration. And yes, they are going for primetime Emmys. That's what this is all about. And that's why it's called an FYC screening for your consideration. Yeah, FYC. But they're going to bring out all the goodies. You know what? This is interesting. It used to be a time when they would just send you a DVD and the people would watch their screeners at home and they would check out the show that they're supposed to vote for the Emmys. but there's something about a big, loud theatrical presentation. And it is interesting that J.A. Bayona certainly did apply his skills as a director to episode 1 and 2 to give it that feature film quality. So that's what they're doing. They're bringing out those two things at a big screening this weekend.
They
And
said
unfortunately, I'll be doing a big wedding ceremony. I'm sorry.
well, they have confirmed at least 5 people will be in attendance for a Q&A. Again, you can sign up. We've posted the link on our Facebook page. Look for the One Ring Net on Facebook, or just go to the front page of Collider.com. Collider.com has a link, and it's literally they just want your email for their newsletter, and then they will email you if you got 1 or 2 passes.
So the idea is that you are not limited to just being a person who's in a guild or in a voting body for the Emmys. You can actually go and check it out, even if you're not one of those voting members.
There is a second free screening the following day for union members only for the Academy. But so Cliff, with minimum 5 people, possibly more in attendance, we've heard that most likely 2 of them will be production designer Ramsey Avery, Bear McCreary, the front runner for winning, not only nominated but winning for music. So
well, can we just be honest here? Bear McCreary is the front runner for anything that Rings of Power might win.
So who do you want? Who else do you want?
Visual effects and production design.
Who would you like to see at the Q&A if you were going?
I would like to see the showrunners, Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne, so that they could field questions from an eager, inquisitive, and let's say a rather engaged audience. You know, no matter what it may say with their numbers, that 36% of people didn't finish watching the series, but a lot of us did. I have questions.
Well, so let me ask you this, Cliff, because if I'm a studio person and I want this show to be nominated, I do not want anything negative to be said or come out about the show on the eve of nominations. Do you feel it's a risk to put the writers and the showrunners in front of an audience, or do you think it would only strengthen the opportunity to get nominated, to hear from the showrunners responding to the comments from actual fans?
That certainly depends upon the quality of their answers. I really wouldn't know how to answer that myself. It would depend upon the quality of, the people on stage being able to say, look, it's like this. We had the situation. We were down there stuck during the plague, during COVID, and this is what we did. This is what we were energized by. This is what we were thinking to present. And what's wrong with that? I don't see any problem, because a lot of artists and directors go to all these film festivals and they answer exactly those questions exactly that way. This is what we as a production team had in mind while we were writing and producing this material.
I guess the point I would like to make out to reinforce, if Amazon happens to be watching our little show, is Lord of the Rings fans are cut from a different cloth, and we're not interested in the gotcha moment. We are genuinely in love with Tolkien's stories, and we want to go be in Middle Earth as much as possible. We just do. We're not here to make, in that scenario in a theater with Q&A, an audience question. No one's here to getcha, gotcha, good, told you were bad. We genuinely love Lord of the Rings, and we genuinely want to hear their perspective on things.
Yes, absolutely. I'll back you up 100%. The idea isn't to catch anybody in intellectual dishonest conversation. That's not at all what I'm suggesting. And that's not the way we behave. We at the OneRing.net have never behaved like other rage tubers and their rage tube content.
But
That's not what we
our
do.
fandom is, and I think unfortunately
Our fandom
the
is what? Our fandom is what? Engaged at a certain level where they demand an answer, where they
no,
must
they're
understand
just
something?
respectful. They want it. We all our
Oh,
Tolkien
okay.
fandom holds their own opinions. But the thing I've always loved about the OneRing.net especially, but Tolkien fandom in general, is that there's so much respect for other people's opinions and other people coming to Tolkien stories from whatever walk of life, and finding, as you reread Tolkien throughout your lifetime, falling in love with a different character for different reasons at different stages in your life, because Tolkien is so universal
Yes. Yes,
on
indeed.
all of his themes. So this isn't so opening up access to the guys that make all the creative decisions, the showrunners,
Yeah.
only strengthens that relationship with us fans.
Of course. Absolutely. Well, take a look at the way Peter Jackson answered 20 questions from the internet even before he finished his product and got his first movie out in the theaters. Before Fellowship even came out, there was that type of engagement. There was that engagement with the primary visionary, the director behind all of it, and the intellectual engagement of fans who really wanted to learn more and get more insights on that creative process.
Right.
So yeah, that's what it's all about. And I do appreciate what you just said. We relate to Professor Tolkien's works in a very personal and I would say in a legacy kind of way. We respond to Professor Tolkien in a way. How many times do you go back and read George Orwell over and over again? How many times do you go back and reread something like, oh, Emily Bronte? Do you go back and read Wuthering Heights over and over again every year? No, it's a wonderful classic, but I don't go back and read Bronte every year. I go back to J.R.R. Tolkien every year and reread his stuff. This is legacy consumption, for lack of a better
But
term. It's
and I think
really who we are. Yeah.
the rage tubers and the hate machine, they've been so loud over the last year that I think there's this opinion inside the studio based on the quotes we see in the press from the showrunners and the studio people. I think there's this opinion that
Yeah.
if you hate the show, you were going to hate the show before you even saw the show. And
That's what the creators of the show said,
and
and that's not true.
and it's not
That's
true.
not true.
And this Tolkien fandom, not just Torn, but Tolkien fandom in general, respect each other's opinions, and that's what we see it as a strength. Where
Of course.
the reason Cliff loves these stories is way different than the reason I love these stories. It's way different than how Nerd of the Rings love these stories. But we all come together over a love of it, even if it is different types of love for different reasons. And we all
Indeed.
see different parts of ourselves in the stories. And so there is no one answer, and this is why Tolkien was so adamant that allegory has no place here, because
Yes,
it means
exactly.
everything to everyone. So
Exactly. It's about applicability to Professor Tolkien. And of course, he talked about that at length.
So Cliff,
Yes.
final thing on this screening. There's 2 screenings this week. One open to the public. You can get tickets at collider.com right now on the front page. Open up a new tab window and go do that. Do you think if they want this show to get nominated for an Emmy, should McPain show up? Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne, as we colloquially call them, McPain, should they show up and defend their show?
Maybe they don't have to defend their show. Maybe they just need to speak with honesty and intelligence about it. But yes, it would be helpful for them to get Emmy nominations, for them to stand in front of the whole world and say, this is how we got from point A to point B in this process. And it also is supporting us in future seasons as we go to 4 other points, C, D, E, and F. There's 4 more seasons to go. There's many more seasons to come. So why wouldn't they come and have a robust conversation and say, this is how we got here? I think that'd be great. That'd be great.
Monica in the chat room says, I really don't understand all the cloak and dagger. What's the reason for not communicating or being transparent?
Great question.
Well, they gave us the answer, and I'll just keep this short. They gave us the answer, which is J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay both said at different times in different publications to different press people, we wanted to keep it a secret. We wanted to keep it a surprise. We didn't think anybody in 2023 would believe believe that Anatar can fool everybody. So we wanted to fool the audience by keeping all the surprises. And I don't if we only have one soapbox between you, Cliff, me, Matt, T with Tolkien, who was just on the show, Kelly Rice, Happy Hobbit, I think we all have said the same thing. No more mystery boxes. That don't work. So their reasoning for secrecy has no place in this fandom. And
Agreed. Look, Professor Tolkien didn't rely on that as a narrative device, so you guys don't need to rely on that.
Right.
You don't need to fool us or make us feel like we've been, scooped by, a surprise. I tell you what.
Well, we don't need to get into it. We've soapboxed that enough.
We don't need to get into it. We've already beaten
but yesterday,
that stick a while now. But
Collider, the same folks that are doing this Rings of Power thing this Saturday. Last night, Collider did another screening for Andor. 2 episodes, the strongest episodes of Andor. Our pal and former co-host Chelsea. You guys might remember Chelsea, who used to host a show with Cliff at Scum and Villainy.
Our wonderful co-host Chelsea Schwartz.
You can see her right there at the bottom of the frame in this photo from the theater with Andy Serkis himself holding up a lightsaber with Chelsea and the whole fan group that got tickets to the Collider screening of Andor last night. This is the type of energy that you can look forward to. This is the type of access that you can look forward to on Saturday for this Rings of Power screening. So whoever they're bringing, this is what could result. Andy Serkis taking photos, signing autographs, and just being friendly with everybody. And thank you so much, Chelsea, for getting there. How lucky she was to already be on the Disney studio lot.
You know what, Chelsea, you can find her online at Sprinkled by Magic. Well, also Uncool Rockstar. Yeah, Uncool Rockstar is her personal, but look at the cool stuff she's doing on Sprinkled by Magic, her other account. But I love the way that Andy Serkis has always been connected to fans, the way he's always been very generous to show up at audiences
and he's still
energize the people in the crowd. He's so good at that. He's so good.
Whatever you call fame, his star power is still increasing. Like, I feel like we all fell in love with him as Gollum 20 years ago, and he is still finding ways to grow a fan base because he just keeps delivering amazing work. And I have to say this about Andor and Andy Serkis specifically in Andor. Andy's 2 or 3 speeches that he gives in character in the show Andor are better than all of the speeches combined in Rings of Power. That is great writing. That is great writing by Tony Gilroy. And we will talk about writing. We will talk about the writing and the writer's strike.
You really are throwing down the gauntlet, but
do you disagree?
True.
Do you disagree?
No, I'm laughing a little bit because, Justin, you're being so brave today, but I agree. The writing on Andor is probably, this might not sound right, but the powerful, very, very powerful writing on Andor was probably better than Star Wars deserves. And that's a little bit of a joke by saying that it's probably better than Star Wars has ever experienced that kind of writing.
Yep.
I've never experienced the idea that I'm deep in a political thriller as much as I'm in a very recognizable Star Wars world with all the interesting visuals and unique characters and art direction and
And
all the stuff that makes Star Wars uniquely it's a very playful sci-fi world in Star Wars. It's not like hardcore Dune. It's certainly not like hardcore Neuromancer or Isaac Asimov Foundation. This stuff in Star Wars is more lightweight in terms of sci-fi, and it's always fun and accessible. This time, Andor gave us a darker, way more sophisticated spin.
Sophisticated and political, which
so
Cliff,
sophisticated.
I understand.
Boy,
If
highly
am I to
complex ideas in Andor. Really great stuff. Great stuff.
The interesting thing, Cliff, before we move on, is
Yes.
am I to understand that the fall of Numenor is as dark and politically intriguing as Andor currently is? And if Rings of Power is to course correct, you would like to see dark, well-written political intrigue for the story of Numenor?
And don't we have ample opportunity for that? We have, of course I expect that, because there's so much of what J.R.R. Tolkien wrote in the history of Numenor that supports that kind of powerful staging and deeper, look, Tony Gilroy and the folks at Andor were empathetic, and there's a very humanist ideology behind the political turmoil in Andor. And that's what roots the story, really rooted in the ground. Even though you're set in outer space, Andor was about as feet on the ground, roots in the soil kind of storytelling you can imagine, even though we're in the middle of a quote-unquote space opera. But there's ample room for that in season 2 and beyond for Rings of Power. They have so much bandwidth in the Numenorian story for that hard political intrigue. People who believe in the faithful and lie about it. People who do not believe in the faithful and they trumpet that from the top of the hills.
This is what's crazy about season 1.
It's gonna get hardcore.
If season 1 was, as they say, meant to reintroduce and set up everything to come, what you just said, I do not understand. I don't understand what you mean faithful and not faithful. And I feel like they wasted 8 hours of my time by not introducing me to any of the political intrigue that is about to take place.
The only glimpse you got of that was at the very end of season 8. Only at the end of episode 8 did you see any of that.
Faithful to who? Or to what? Or to where? I know what you're talking about a little bit. But
a little bit? You mean they're talking about the Numenorians who are faithful to the ways of the Valar, and those who are not? I don't
understand it. I didn't see that in the show. I didn't see that. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it.
Really?
Andor does a great job of
what about in
explaining.
Episode 8, when there's a blinded Queen Regent Tarmiriel, and she's on the boat, and she actually confides in Elendil. And they actually confide in each other.
At that point,
they confide in each other. Yeah.
At that point, I don't care about Elendil because he left his son on the battlefield to die. So I've already given up on Elendil. And as far as I'm concerned, Isildur's dead. I don't care what the photos are saying. Moving on.
You're so funny.
This is the second show this week. As you can see, this is the Television Academy Emmys right here on screen for your consideration. Events Sunday. On the 7th at 3 p.m., The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. This is sent in from a member of the Voting Academy. This is their dashboard that they got. Of course, they signed up for Rings of Power. And we have photos from inside The Rings of Power for your consideration. We don't expect the screening on Saturday to be at this place that I'm showing you right now. But this is the private, members only, Academy invite only demo room for the Rings of Power. Look at that wonderful elvish architecture holding up all of these wonderful prints of the artwork of the show. They are trying to get Ramsey Avery a creative Emmy for the creative and pre-production work. And so there you can see there's a lot of photos of the thing. And the TV, the screen right
Wow,
here that
look at
says,
that.
Rings of Power for your consideration, outstanding production design for a narrative, period, or fantasy program, 1 hour or more. This is for episode 3, Adar. So you have to submit a specific episode for awards consideration.
That's right. And I'm a little bit puzzled. Why are they submitting and screening episodes 1 and 2? I think that there are stronger
Well,
episodes in Rings of Power season 1.
We'll talk about that in a second. Here's other parts of the Amazon hotel that they've set up. Again, there's some outfits. If you right there under the stairwell, there is Arondir's and Galadriel's outfits. You fans saw these in person if you went to our Comic-Con party last year, hosted by Rings of Power. And of course, there's costumes from Marvelous Miss Maisel and The Boys. But Rings of Power got their own special cases because it is far and above the Amazon's pride and joy. And fans, you got a first look. It is at this building, which is exactly 1 block away from Scum and Villainy Hollywood. So if you're a smooth talker, maybe you can sneak in. And they've done Dead Ringers. Dead Ringers is a show that I need to check out.
But that has Rachel Weisz.
Rachel Weisz,
twin sisters. Yeah.
So these are photos from the Dead Ringers event. But I wanted to show you the Rings of Power.
That's cool.
Literally, Amazon, can I have that wood structure when you're done with it? I would love to use that for my booth at San Diego Comic-Con. Torn is coming to Comic-Con.
Yeah, let's use that for our booth at Comic-Con. I want to say a very quick hello to all the wonderful people in the live chat in YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and of course Facebook, and everyone talking with us in our different chats. And there's Matt, Nerd of the Rings, and of course there's Monica. Hello, and look at all our wonderful friends here in the chat. Thank you for you fabulous
Nerd of the Rings. He wants the art book, and
he does want the art book. He also said that Andor is an amazing example of in-world political drama. Numenor should do likewise and be political in ways that make sense in-world. Parenthesis, not an allegory like elves will take our jobs. Close parenthesis. You know what? That's true. Thank you for saying that and reminding us of that.
Speaking of art book, here you go, Matt. Jennifer Hutchinson, the lead writer of Rings of Power, says, remember how my husband got me a painted copy of Lord of the Rings, hand-painted by Maisie Matilda, who some of us met in London? Well, she just got a copy of the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, hand-painted on the spine by Maisie Matilda for Jennifer's show, The Rings of Power. You can see that's Galadriel on the bottom, and those are Nori and Poppy, the Harfoots on the side. Cool. So congratulations to Jennifer, the lead writer on Rings of Power, for getting a copy of the Silmarillion using the characters from the show that she's written on. It's just, I'm so charmed by this piece of artwork and this show and everything that's cool. Jennifer's doing.
I think that's really lovely. That is really lovely, and having that kind of personalization on a volume is just delicious. That's really very cool indeed.
Hey, speaking of back to awards real quick. I just brought that book up because Matt came in asking for an art book. But Cliff, I was looking at the For Your Consideration Rings of Power book, which is now online. I should put it in the description, but maybe I'll do that after the show. There's a PDF version that you can look at legally. See, Matt and I had to go to eBay and pull some favors to get our copy of the book. The interesting thing, Cliff, I wanted to circle is, For Your Consideration, they've put forth Peter Milan as outstanding guest actor. Peter Milan, of course, plays Durin the Third.
Yes, he does.
Which is the current king under the mountain, the current king of Khazad-dûm, and Owain's father figure, who strips Owain of his title by
He
the end
does.
of season 1. But Cliff,
Yes.
what does guest actor mean to you? Because it means something to me that is less than I expected from Peter Milan. So I'm surprised that Peter Milan, who was in Westworld and one of my favorite actors in Rings of Power, got a couple great scenes as King Durin, but they're putting him forth as guest actor, which implies he's just a guest and he's not coming back.
Yes, that does kind of suggest, in a weird way, that he's not going to be there for all of the seasons. But how can they continue the storyline in season 2 without him?
Would
He
they
has to be.
dare kill him off screen between seasons?
No, how could they do that? How on earth could they do that?
He could die of old age. He could get eaten by a Balrog. I don't know. They could explain it away. Would you be shocked?
Monica says in the live chat, it means daddy's days are numbered. Oh my goodness. But, look.
I would be very sad. No, more than sad. I would be very mad if Peter Milan is not coming back for season 2 and he was just a guest actor in season 1. Cliff, what about you?
Yeah, I would also be disappointed because he's brilliant, and his strength and anger as very angry Daddy Durin is brilliant. And I've never, ever heard an actor ever shout the word enough with such powerful dwarven authority. Oh man, he nails it. But I think we should dial it back to the way that these guest categories are generally described. I mean, in the tradition of Academy voting, and I mean Emmy, the Emmy voting, not Academy Awards, but usually a guest star is a person who's on only one episode, just one episode out of the entire season. They have a guest spot. Like, oh, you're on Will and Grace, and you're on Will and Grace for one episode. You play that character, and we don't see you for the rest of the season. But that guest appearance is somebody who would still get nominated in that category. So I don't know why they're doing that for him, because he's a recurring, ongoing ensemble player, and we'll continue to see him in the ensemble. So it seems a bit odd. I don't quite get it. At least, categorizing how they put the votes in,
I'm just
he is brilliant.
Unforced error. Look, we already have complained that this cast was way too big, and they did I don't know, and they've doubled the cast for season 2.
Yeah.
If they're killing King Durin off screen, don't do that. The dwarves are your strongest storyline. The dwarves under the mountain are your strongest storyline.
Oh, yes, it is. The one that we have all responded to unequivocally.
Yeah,
a lot of
across
happiness.
the board.
Everyone is very joyful when we're in Khazad-dûm. Everyone loves Disa and
Durin and the kids, and
everyone loves the kids
daddy
running around with the helm of Dor Lomin on the kids.
And even the dynamics of the dad, and dad and father and son dynamics and everything else, and
the elevator conversation between Elrond and Prince Durin is my personal favorite. I love the elevator conversation.
So
when they're on a lift in Khazad-dûm. I love that.
Don't do what I think you're doing, because guest actor implies a very specific use of that actor.
It implies a limited use of him. That's what it implies. But you know what? Somebody in the chat, and I think it's no one at all, said that in Picard season 3, a good portion of the original top billing name players from the Next Generation, all these crew members who come back to Picard season 3, they were all listed as, quote, guest stars, even though they appeared in several episodes. So perhaps there's something different in the regulations for how long an actor appears on screen. But maybe there's a different way that Emmy votes are being processed now.
But and maybe maybe it's just for one season, because Picard's done. It's done. So those were guest stars.
That was a 3-season show. Yeah.
Those guys never returned for another season, and they were not previewed in previous seasons either. So I understand calling him a guest actor but it implies that he is a guest actor in only
Yes, it
season
does.
1.
And I
Because
hope that's not true.
if you come back for season 2, you're a recurring actor. Period.
Do you know what? I'm waiting for a time when there's going to be some kind of stupid fight going on at the cantina, and I'm going to stand there and use Peter's voice. Enough!
He honestly, he
I'm
had the
waiting for that.
most
I'm waiting for
emotion.
that.
Peter Millan had the most emotion in
He
the
did.
entire series. He is the one you should double and triple down on. Like, all of the elves
He
are
was awesome.
stoic. All of the elves are stoic. And it's just Galadriel just has one mood the whole show, and the only emotion of extreme we got from anybody was Peter Mulan. And I
Yeah.
would
No, you know what? I actually got some emotion out of Bronwyn and Arondir, and I'm still thinking about the way that they look at each other and how much they love each other, and that secret love affair that they're doing. I was kind of into that too.
Okay.
As much as I
but
complained,
that's a different
I
emotion.
still had parts of season 1 that I really got into, that I really liked. Even though I complain about
Here's what
the
Yes.
Anatar Halbrand thing
but
all the time.
the other thing the other thing I want to mention about Peter Mulan is that the fandom has unequivocally, from all corners, said the dwarves are your best thing in the show. The dwarves are the best storyline, and I want the producers to recall that in the first season of Breaking Bad, Jesse was supposed to die.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Jesse Pinkman was supposed to die in season 1.
That's right.
And not only that, Dean Norris was supposed to die too, the brother-in-law.
Oh my.
And because of many reasons and the fan reaction, the producers on Breaking Bad said, "Hold up, wait a minute. We don't need to do that because the internet seems to like these guys." So Jesse ended up being the co-star and the second biggest actor on the show.
Yep. That is how that happened.
So listen to the fans. We're telling you exactly what we want. Cliff told you exactly what he wants from political intrigue. I'm telling you what I want from a casting perspective. Don't deny us some friendly love, okay? Please listen to the fans.
How about please listen to the fans, please. Amazon Prime Video. JD Payne and Patrick McKay, please listen when we say
the Galadriel needs a mood ring.
we need more of Anatar, and we need more of Anatar doing what Anatar does.
And Anatar isn't stupid. Thinking that Anatar is too stupid for audiences in 2023, that no one would believe in a guy like Anatar and what he does, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's just disrespectful to Tolkien, it's disrespectful to fans that love these stories, and it's disrespectful to the legacy that you're building upon.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. You know what? Agreed. It's very much agreed. Anatar's ability to seduce people to a position of making morally wrong choices. This is biblical. This is part of what Caitlin, Tea with Tolkien, was talking with us about last week, looking at Tolkien from a Catholic perspective. And why not? He was a devout Roman Catholic. And there is something about temptation and the inner struggle for characters to do the right thing when the wrong thing is put right in front of them. And it is a biblical choice, almost. It's as if Anatar is truly representing that Judeo-Christian belief system from the Old Testament, and even from the New Testament, where the devil, the bringer of your troubles, the person who would bring all the troubles to your door, is going to arrive with yet another temptation to do things that might be the easier way out. I'm reminded of Job, the book of Job, and all the troubles that he had, I'm also reminded of how figures are able to stay true to their own spiritual alignment against the face of that temptation. It happens in Numenor, it happens in The Lord of the Rings, and in the Second Age, particularly, it happens when Anatar goes to visit the High King. That would be the High King Gil-galad and his buddy Elrond. And Anatar didn't even show up in the first season, knocking on the door of the kingdom and saying, "Hey guys, let's do some work on some magic rings." We didn't even, because at that point, the first people in Middle Earth who say, "No, we're not going to buy into this temptation. This is not cool. We're not doing this." And that would be Elrond and the High King. And you know what? The kingdom of Lindon was closed, and Anatar was turned away. So he went wandering for hundreds and hundreds of miles and ended up going to seduce Celebrimbor and the other elven ringsmiths in Eregion. We didn't get to see any of that. We didn't see a single stretch of that narrative that Tolkien wrote. And already within that simple drawing board, Tolkien has given us people who are morally deficient in Celebrimbor and other elves who are morally upstanding. That would be the High King, Gil-galad and Elrond. We could have had that already. We already could have had a whole large season 1 playground of the audience
of introductions
looking at this guy
and
saying,
relationships.
And who is this guy Anatar going to dupe next? He couldn't dupe Elrond, but he's going to go and dupe Celebrimbor. This is going to be interesting, but we didn't get that. We didn't get that.
And what I'm terrified,
and that is the core of my complaints about season 1. Otherwise, I really did love Khazad-dûm, and I loved the music, and I really enjoyed Numenor, and I loved all the other stuff.
Staying with Anatar, I am terrified that they didn't learn their lesson from everything that we've been screaming from the rooftops over every corner of the internet. That with Anatar specifically, you were wrong in the way you approached how Anatar and audiences should have a relationship. And I hope that you don't keep Anatar a secret. I, as an audience member, do not want to be surprised in episode 6 of season 2 when it's revealed that Anatar is this person. Take us along for the journey. We've read these books. We know these stories. We want to go along with the journey with you, period.
Oh, yes.
So it's fun for us to be on a journey.
Yeah, I agree with Monica, who actually says that she could make the same argument from an Islamic perspective, from that spiritual perspective.
Yes.
Yes, she's right. And that is an absolute moment of spiritual clarity for all of us. You know, that's why Professor Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings without all of the serious allegorical connections, to be within one lane or another lane of intellectual thought. He allowed applicability so that a Muslim reader and a Jewish reader and even a Protestant reader like me could sit down with a Catholic reader like tea with Tolkien, and we could all arrive at these same intellectual conversations. Exactly.
Cliff,
exactly.
I remember, when we, for a couple of years, we did the road to DragonCon, where you and me and a few fans would drive from LA to Atlanta. We spent 2 weeks driving cross country, and I'll never forget the day that you and I met up with a fan who responded to us on Twitter in the deep South. I believe it was Alabama or Georgia, and we just had lunch together, and he was a pastor at a local church.
Yes, he was. In the deep, deep South, way deep, in that part of the American rural area they call the Bible Belt. And they do call it that for a reason. And it's a fantastic spiritual conversation that a bunch of strangers had in the middle of the day who never met each other. And we're just driving across country, and he and I are sitting there from rather different perspectives of his background and my background in spiritual teachings. And we had to have a fascinating conversation about how Frodo and his ability to forgive Gollum and the forgiveness and the forbearance of Frodo towards Smeagol actually saves his life and ultimately saves all of Middle-earth by that act of grace and that act of forgiveness. And it's all built into an exemplification of the Lord's Prayer in the triangulation between Samwise, Frodo, and Smeagol. And that's how Tolkien wrote it that way. And we got to sit down with our new friend, and we were breaking bread together in fellowship and actually got to illuminate for him other spiritual ideas that he didn't even know. And he's a pastor. It was such a great conversation. I love that about J.R.R. Tolkien. Instead of bringing people together to have fights over, like, rage tubers want you to fight over Tolkien. Do you know what we want to do? We want you to get together and have a picnic and have lunch together and talk about what you love about Tolkien. I think that's the difference here in our little corner of the web.
And that is the difference. And this is why when we say if there's going to be a Q&A with a bunch of actors and participants of the show this weekend, Patrick McKay, J.D. Payne on stage, because again, we're not about finding ways to dislike you. We're about finding ways that we can all find new ways to appreciate Tolkien. And I think the show and the fandom will benefit from the showrunners speaking out loud and saying, "This is how we've always seen it." And us other fans being enlightened with, "I've never seen it that way, but now I understand where you're coming from." And this is interesting because you had that experience in the middle of the Bible Belt on a road trip where we stopped for lunch. Right. Because that's just what this fandom is. It's about connecting over all the reasons we love these stories.
Yes, exactly. Well said. Now, let's get back to something that I wanted to question about. It is a general practice to show your best episode to the Emmy voters. And you said earlier that last night they showed Andor, but they didn't show Andor 1 and 2. They showed like the best episode of Andor.
6 and 7.
Right. They want people to vote on that. Do you think that they should have presented maybe the episode with the volcano, Udun? Maybe they should have
shown 6 and 7, the explosion and the aftermath.
The explosion and the aftermath.
Well, here's what I'll tell you.
Shown those.
Well, here's what I'll tell you is
because Adar, we're talking about how good.
Since different. Well,
Adar is such a great character. He should be in there as part of that consideration. Yeah.
Since December, Amazon has held many awards screenings and Q&As.
Okay.
For Rings of Power. Since December, the episodes that they have shown are episodes 6 and 7. They have since December, because remember there was the Golden Globes in January. Right. There's been several award shows, MTV Movie, the Cinematographers Guild, the Screen Actors Guild. So there's been a ton of award shows, and we've reported on all of them here on the show. And we've also reported that everybody that has been nominated for the show has been let go from the show. But ever since December, they have been showing episodes 6 and 7, the volcano episodes.
Yes.
And where has that got them? Nowhere. No awards, no winners.
Okay.
So I believe that the strategy going into Emmys, the big one that matters to Amazon this weekend, is to show episode 1 and 2, because that is the one that got all the good reviews. The pilot was directed by J.A. Bayona, who's an accomplished director. There is something different about episode 1 and 2. It feels better. It feels better produced, better directed, and a more complete cinematic experience. Episode 1 and 2 feel more...
Fair enough.
Feel better than episode 6 and 7. That's my opinion.
I get it.
And that's what I think they're doing. But you're right in that episode 6 and 7 are worthy of attention. The problem is that they've been trying that for the last 6 months, and it hasn't worked out. So...
The only thing that, as Matt Nerd of the Rings just points out, there's no Numenor. And you show episodes 1 and 2.
I think Numenor is the stupidest part of the show so far. I'm sorry. Like everything that you keep telling me that Numenor is all
Oh,
about is not present in the show.
so it hasn't translated for you, those
No, not
qualities.
at all. Not at all. I'm like turned out at like 3 episodes in Numenor, and I was just like, this show sucks. Like it's boring. It's stupid. There's nothing happening. I don't care about any of these characters. Like what's
Is
going
that
on?
is that because a lot of it was not made clear to you the way it should have been made clear?
Yeah, nothing made sense. Why are we here? What is the purpose of this island? What is this place? Why should I be in awe of this? And rewatching Return of the King in theaters a couple weeks ago with you, Cliff, and
Yes.
with Mark Ordesky and Rick Porras,
Yes.
when we show up to Gondor, the White City in
Yeah.
Return of the King,
Yeah.
as a fan, as a viewer, I'm in awe. The characters, whatever, the writing, the great writing in Lord of the Rings, prepared me to lay eyes on the mythical city, the mythical White City. So when
Yes.
when I finally see that, I'm in awe. I'm just like, oh my God, this is what every character has been whispering about. The White City
Yeah.
must survive. The White City cannot fall. The White City is where the king will return. The White City,
This is
the
our
White City.
it's our only last defense against Mordor. Yeah.
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 So when we
Yeah, I
finally
get that.
get there,
I get that.
I'm in awe when we see it. And then every shot of them leaving and coming from the White City, when Gandalf goes and rescues a dying Faramir with his magic white wand against the fell beast, and you see the big shot of the White City and the White Wizard, I'm just like, this is heroic. This is amazing. I understand why this city is magical. I don't get any of that from Numenor. All I get from Numenor is they took your jobs, like a South Park joke.
They took our jabs.
It's
You're
a South
funny.
Park joke, literally.
It is a South Park joke, and that was unfortunate. In fact, that was probably one of the more unfortunate blunders there.
And Cecilia in the chat room,
Yes.
I believe you. Cecilia says Numenor will be the protagonist later on. Justin,
Yes.
this season was only to introduce the places. Well, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I know it has a huge role to play in future seasons, and it'll be super dramatic. And I know the cursory overview of things that are going to happen there, but I feel
Well,
like
look, Tar Muriel had that dream, and you know that's going to come true.
oh, totally. But
She had that dream
Nothing in season
destruction.
1 made me like that. You know, the Numenor episodes are the ones where my family just turned off and kept texting me like, "Hey, when does this show pick up again?" And I'm like, I have no answer. You know.
Okay.
So
I gotcha. I gotcha on that. Well, I tell you what, there's only one way to go, and that's upwards.
upwards.
Only one way to go, upwards. Right?
So before we jump into a conversation about the writers' strike,
Yeah, do you know what? They're protesting right down the block from me. Right there in front of the Masonic Temple, where Jimmy
Yeah.
Kimmel Live, and right there in between the Chinese theater and the Kodak Theater, where they have the Oscars, and they're in front of Jimmy Kimmel Live. A lot of the writers have already gathered in protest. I think my roommate just walked past them. Hey, roommate, did you walk past the writer's strike? Yep. He said he just walked past the writer's strike. They're all out there demonstrating on the sidewalk.
well, this is video from in front of Amazon Studios here in Los Angeles.
There they go. Yes.
An actual picket line at an Amazon corporation. Cliff, can you believe it? The union is picketing
Wow.
Amazon Culver Studios. This is where home office is for everything Rings of Power and everything Amazon Prime Studios does. The crazy thing, Cliff, here you go. Not only is there a picket line in front of Amazon Studios, writer-creator Damon Lindelof was on hand
Really?
carrying a sign that says
Damon Lindelof himself was out there picketing?
with a handmade sign that says Alexa
Whoa.
will not replace us.
Oh, he's talking about AI generating writing instead of actual writers. Wow.
You know, someone in the few people in the chat room kept saying it earlier in
Wow.
the episode. Our chat room said, "Rings of Power is not lost. Ditch the mystery boxes." And here we are. Guess who's picketing Amazon? Damon Lindelof, the writer creator of Lost.
That's too funny. That is too funny. Well, you know what? They're not making unreasonable demands. I mean, the writers are getting ripped off by everybody re-streaming and redistributing their work on platforms, and the writers aren't getting paid squat. However, they're the people who create everything. They are the people who create everything that happens, and they're not getting paid their fair share. And
well, here's some support from
so I say
writers in the
bully
guild.
for them. Bully for them.
Neil Gaiman, who has a show at Amazon Prime called Good Omens, says
Good Omens is about to come out this year. Yes.
Here's what he says, though, Cliff. Neil Gaiman says, "I'm in the Writers Guild of America. I wish this wasn't happening and support it absolutely. When I wake up, I will be on strike. To forestall the inevitable questions, Good Omens 2 is completed and handed in, although I may not be able to promote it as I had hoped."
That's right, because he's going to be on strike. How interesting. I wonder what's happening behind the scenes of The Sandman season 2, since the strike is now on.
What do you think he means where he's not able to promote Good Omens? Like that the show is done. He doesn't need to write anymore. If this is a writer's strike, why would Neil Gaiman say I'm not able to promote it?
Well, something important needs to be said about Good Omens. All right? I have the original book that was co-written by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. It's right here on my shelf. But Terry Pratchett, as you all know, is no longer with us. And season 1 of Good Omens completed the entire story. That's the only story there's ever been, was the first book, that novel, was completed in season 1. Right now, season 2 doesn't have Terry Pratchett involved, is going beyond the scope of anything that was in the book, and now it's all brand new Neil Gaiman stuff. All brand new. And if anybody should be out there trying to help promote this material, it would be Neil Gaiman, because he's the one who is behind it. He's the one who has to answer all the questions, because all the fans out there are like, how are you going beyond the scope of your first book? There weren't any other books, and your co-author is dead. So what gives? What kind of stuff are we expecting from you for this TV series and ongoing seasons? And it is the ultimate job for Neil Gaiman to be like he usually is. He's so good talking to fans. Neil Gaiman is so good, probably way, way better than Patrick McKay or J.D. Payne could be. Honestly, I'm not trying to dig at them, but I think Neil Gaiman is very good at front-facing and interfacing with the fans.
Interfacing with the fans. Yeah.
He's so good at it.
And he owns up to the changes. Anytime there's a change in the Sandman, he has proactively gone on Twitter with the Sandman and said, we changed this, and I'm proud of it.
And here's why. And here's why we changed it. This is what's going on. He's always been very front-facing like that. And it's going to be unfortunate that he can't help promote season 2 of Good Omens. But I think this is going to spell some unknown issues for other productions that we're all looking at.
Let's stay on his show.
What about Rings of Power? Is Rings of Power also going to be affected by the strike?
We're going to get into that in a sec, but Cliff, does this mean Amazon has a red alert problem if Neil Gaiman, as a union writer, is saying, I cannot promote my own show? Like, is Amazon in trouble now because he can't talk? He's not going to promote the show?
Yes, in regards to that show, yes. And they need him. Amazon Prime Video needs Neil Gaiman and his gentle voice out there in the world to explain what is going on with the second season of Good Omens, because it's
about to come out.
But it's also beyond the scope of what was written years and years ago with Terry Pratchett. And
it's a sequel.
Look, Terry Pratchett was one of the greatest fantasy authors in England. He's created the Discworld series and so many other wonderful stories. And I interviewed him. He was so generous to myself and the production crew of Ringer's Lord of the Fans. Terry Pratchett said, "Come on over to my house.
He's in
Let's
the
have a nice-"
documentary.
He said, "Let's have a nice cup of tea, meet the missus. Come on inside. Have a nice cup of tea." He wasn't like that. But he was literally, "I'm glad to meet you. Set up your camera, set up your lights. Let's have a great interview here in my house." He was so welcoming. And if Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne were doing things like that, come, sit in my living room. Let's put a log on the fire and let's talk about Lord of the Rings.
But it sounds like that's not going to happen. If Neil Gaiman is the executive producer, writer, and creator of Good Omens, and he's saying
Good Omens 2, yes.
And he's saying, as a union member of the WGA, Writers Guild of America, I cannot promote the show. Does this mean McKay, Payne and McKay cannot and will not, because they are also Writers Guild union members?
It makes you wonder.
And that is the first union that they were involved in, because they've only been writers for the last 10 years. Question
you're
in the
right.
chat
You know
room.
what that reminds me? They're not in the Producers Guild or the Directors Guild. Those boys are writers.
Those guys are writers.
That's their career.
So,
they're writers.
Right. If I'm Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne, they are not breaking the picket line because they are WGA writers. If you break the picket line, you are forever expelled from the union. And that means that they could no longer work on the show. So I can tell you right now, because of their union affiliation, Rings of Power is probably shut down as of today. And here's why: because
really? You think Rings
of
Power has shut down production today?
I believe because the showrunners are WGA members, and I looked it up, confirmed it in the directory.
But so is Jennifer Hutchinson and all the other lead writers. They're all WGA, aren't they?
Well, check it out. Here's Helen Shang, one of the writers of Season 2, Episode 3, says, "Until his deal is reached, bye-bye office." Helen Shang says goodbye. Here's Jennifer Hutchinson, who you just mentioned. Guess what? The studio thinks the number of writers necessary is absolutely least number possible.
Wow.
She says, "I've been on many shows where the showrunner is doing the bulk of the writing and covering set and post. J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay are all WGA. So is Jennifer. So is Helen. They are all walked off set today. Union rules. They all walked off set today."
They did walk off set. It's done. So if they were there in England, they're off set. Do you know what? One of our wonderful people in the chat had said that the UK Guild is also supporting the strike. Even though this is a strike originated here in America with the Writers Guild of America and their union, evidently there's full-throated support from the UK Guild supporting these writers in the United Kingdom, which is where they're currently producing future seasons of Rings of Power.
And Jennifer Hutchinson and Helen Shang are members of WGA America. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where they're filming. WGA wrote the show in America. The episodes were written in America under an American union contract. So the deal holds. The strike holds. So all American writers were supposed to walk off set today. And I can confirm from three actors that were filming yesterday on a new Marvel TV show, they walked off. They were told not to report to set because production is shut down. The showrunners and the writers of an upcoming Marvel show, because of the strike, they had to walk off the show. So they told all the actors, "Don't show up. We're on hiatus." So right now, I am hearing that all late night talk shows, including Stephen Colbert and even the HBO show, John Oliver, Last Week Tonight, and Jimmy Kimmel, they're all closed. They're on strike. They're not doing any shows.
Can we clarify that this is not affecting motion pictures, that this is affecting television?
This is all motion pictures as well.
Oh, so this is affecting writers for motion pictures and television.
Yes, the difference is that on motion pictures, the writer is usually not involved on the set.
All right.
The
Okay.
way you make a movie is you write the script, you go through all the revisions, you lock the script, and then you hand it over. And the writer sometimes never shows up on set because they're no longer involved. Television, the writers should be involved every day on set. Every day. The writers are on set. In fact, Jennifer Hutchinson is rumored to be in London on set for the last several months for Rings of Power. Jennifer walking off the set means they've lost their head writer. And if Payne and McKay are going to hold to their union deal, they walked off the set today as well. We reached out to Amazon Prime this afternoon for comment on whether these rumors are true, and we have not heard back yet. But as soon as we hear an official statement from Amazon and the showrunners about the status of Rings of Power, which is in the middle of production right now, we will share that and we'll post an article. So we haven't heard anything official, but I can tell you, as union members, Payne and McKay have a duty to walk off the set, which basically shuts down production.
Wild. So this is probably something that qualifies as equal news and equal Green Dragon gossip at the same time. We are reporting to you now, ladies and gentlemen. We are reporting to you as if it were journalism that Rings of Power has been shut down, but it is only by assumption of causality. We're making the assumption of causality between the existing strike that went on today and it affecting the people over there now. So
that's right.
It's part
all we know
real
is the
story,
the
but
instructions.
It's not confirmed.
It's
yet,
not confirmed the status of production on Rings of Power. All we know is the WGA union mandates that all members cease work, cease negotiations. They're not allowed to answer emails from studios, and they are to walk off set and not return to set during the strike. So Helen, we have confirmation on Twitter. Helen has walked. Jennifer has walked.
Wow.
And so those are two writers on Rings of Power that have walked off set. And Payne and McKay, I looked up the WGA directory. They are officially, Payne and McKay are official members of the WGA.
Okay.
So
doesn't it mean that if they are producing anything and the writers are on strike, that they can only produce previously written material that the writers had done before the day of today's strike? Is that right?
But they cannot write anything new
anymore. They can't write another word.
Which would mean
Sandman is in production, and they said more than one half of their episodes were written. That means that other productions that are temporarily stalled can only go so far with previous existing written.
But here's the problem,
material.
Cliff. Here's the problem, Cliff. What is the number one criticism of season 1 of Rings of Power?
The writing.
And one of the reasons the writing is bad is because COVID prevented the writers from showing up on set in New Zealand. Because of COVID lockdown rules, the writers could not get a plane ticket, could not be allowed in New Zealand. So we are back.
I get it.
As of today, we are back to square one of why Rings of Power Season 1 failed. 37% retention rate is a failure. Why it didn't work is because the writers weren't on set to fix things on a daily basis because they weren't allowed. And now we are in the same position where the writers are not allowed on set because of a strike.
That does not bode well, does it?
So, Cliff, in your opinion, should the show be shut down until the writers can come back? Or do you have confidence in the quality of the production to continue without the writers?
Let me ask my roommate real quick. Did you see the picketers and the Writers Guild people picketing as you walk down Hollywood?
Who is this roommate?
Hello, you know I have a roommate.
Yeah, but what does he have to do with Rings of Power? I have video footage of the picket lines. I just showed it.
Because they had picketers right down the block, about 2 blocks from my house. I just wanted to know how robust it was.
They can't.
I'll tell you the answer. The answer to your question is, and I'm glad that you asked me that. It does not bode well at all that the writers are going to be off the actual production, but it also means that for them to stop the hemorrhaging of this problem when there's a big writer strike and to stop the slowdown of production, I predict, and maybe I'm wrong, but they're going to continue to film previously written script stuff that was written months ago, but nothing new can be written at all. So that's
We're
my
muted.
prediction.
Wait, hold on.
Oh,
Doesn't
no, I'm not muted.
it shouldn't be
I'm
muted.
not muted. I'm not muted.
Yeah.
No, I'm here. I'm just saying it's going to be bad. Yeah, this is going to be bad for them. And the only thing they can do right now is work on previous pages that were written weeks and weeks ago. I'm just saying it's.
Oh, we're good. So
Wow. So what do you think?
Also,
what do you think?
Also, Cliff, the reason why they should shut down as best practice, they should shut down production without the writers, is because season 1 allegedly filmed every episode in episodic order. So J.A. Bayona filmed episode 1 and 2, complete, done. And then they had the other director do his episode, done, complete. What they have been doing for season 2, which is different, and we've been reporting on, so has Fellowship of Fans, is that they've been filming every piece of every set for every episode out of timeline. So they haven't been filming in order
on the sets.
So they've been filming 4 episodes worth of Aragion, 6 episodes worth of Aragion in one go, and then they break, they mess up the set, and then they film the last 2 episodes of Aragion, all the scenes that need, and then they clear the set, and then they film something else. So they've been shooting out of order. This is why it's important to have a writer on the set, because the writer is in charge of keeping track of all those narrative threads.
You're right. You're quite right.
And it gets more chaotic if you shoot out of order. And they have been shooting out of order, which is nothing wrong with that. It's normal to shoot out of order. But because they're shooting out of order, they need writers more than ever. This is why, with Jennifer and the WGA walking off, they need to shut down. Because it's the one criticism that we're all united on this show. The writing needs to work. And you can't do what happened last time. And I don't know, and people in the chat room are asking, well, they had Zoom. Couldn't the writers zoom in? Here's the difference, is when a writer is on set and she is watching the performance and she sees that actor enunciate a word very specifically or give a line delivery that reinvents the whole concept of the character over a delivery of a line, the writer goes home at night and revises the script based on the performance she just saw. And you don't get that during COVID Zoom. You really have, the writer has to be there on set to feel what the performance is delivering from her words.
Because that's what's organic about the process, is when it's happening right there in front of them. I get that. And the way you describe that, I get that entirely now. Yeah, I do.
And chat room, I appreciate that you guys are having a hard time agreeing with me, and I know it's happened over a few times over the last few weeks, and I know it's troublesome to agree with me on certain things, but boy, like, we need, if fandom can unite under certain messages, so the show will know. Cliff, let me show you some other feedback. Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself, says, I stand with the WGA and fully support them in their strike. He says, if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage.
Hey, that's right, Mark. That is so right. Mark Hamill spitting out truth bullets.
All right, so Neil Gaiman again saying he's not going to be promoting his Amazon Good Omens show, which bodes trouble for Amazon. And Cliff, you were mentioning the WGA. What are they fighting for? Well, currently, the other side of the table, the studios are requesting that writers get a day rate for television. instead of a contract to finish an episode, the studios just want to pay on a day rate. Come in, write your jokes, write your show, and go home at night and send us your invoice. Why is the day rate a problem? It's a rollback from our current contract, which protects us with weekly minimum rates. And for many shows, we require a 13-week contract. So basically, the union contract, as it is now, allows someone to have a healthy middle-class lifestyle. They can afford rent. They can pay a mortgage. They know if they get hired on a show, that they will be employed for the next 13 weeks at minimum.
And that they can have enough to pay their rent, pay their mortgage, or feed their family. Yeah, I get that. Otaku Senpai says that Zoom meetings with the writers would still be breaking the strike.
Yes, it didn't break during COVID, but it would be breaking the strike if they did Zoom meetings. Cliff, here are some silver linings on what a strike happens. According to Vulture, Vince Gilligan, the creator, showrunner of Breaking Bad, says he was going to kill off Hank, brother-in-law Hank. Mm-hmm. But because of the 2008 writer's strike, he says, we had the writer's strike in 2008 in the middle of production. Mm-hmm. 2/3 of the way through production, which is about the same that Rings of Power is right now, because when the writer's strike shuttered production, it prevented the writers from killing Hank.
Really?
So because of the writer's strike in 2008, the writers couldn't find a way, they couldn't write their way to Hank's death. So he stayed on the show and became a fan favorite.
Wow. So that really changed the landscape of everyone's favorite TV show.
Yep.
Just because of the weird timing of that strike.
Yep.
That's very interesting, isn't it?
This would be like, folks, this would be like right now, if the writer's strike affects Rings of Power like it did Breaking Bad, this would be like Celebrimbor not dying this season. And who knows where that would lead to.
You're kidding me. They couldn't do that. I mean, Celebrimbor, if they've already filmed all that stuff with Eragion, like you described, and they did all the scenes that were early, and then they did all the battle scenes that were later, and they showed the destruction. We saw some overhead shots and some spy reports from Fellowship of Fans, and they scooped the idea that Eragion had been blasted by orcs and battle, and it was all over there. So, come on, they must have filmed that stuff already.
Yeah, maybe. Again, like they've still got at least 2 more months of production, so they're probably about 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the way through season 2 of filming. So this is where it really gets gnarly, because the season is supposed to end on a great big 2-episode battle that is huge.
The war of the elves and Sauron.
That is a huge dramatic battle.
It is. It's huge. It's one of the bigger battles in the Second Age. It is one of the more significant battles in the Second Age timeline that affects so many major characters on stage and influences what's going to happen next in the flow of the story. So I wonder, okay, we cannot confirm, and we're not telling anybody right now that it's confirmed they have shut down production on Rings of Power, but we are strongly speculating that that is the matter at hand. Okay? In fact, it's very strong speculation, strong enough to say we're confident that we can speculate this, but we don't know for sure. Why don't we
wait
until we get why don't we get an official statement from Jennifer and the other folks at Prime
Well,
Video?
we have an official statement from Helen, because she posted that she just left. And Jennifer has said and Jennifer has said in a separate tweet that she left. So the 2 of the writers have left. Does the union strike hold for overseas productions, Cliff?
Yes, because if you're in that union, no matter where you're filming on foreign soil, you're still in that union. And the production that you're working on, even if they're filming in Iceland, like, oh, let's go and film Prometheus. And Ridley Scott is going to bring all of his camera and all of his folks to film in Iceland. Well, guess what? It was still written under WGA. The actors are still under SAG. It's a production with American money and a British director filmed in Iceland, but still under the auspices of that union as a governing body for the workers who are members of that union. So still, it will hold. The strike and the conditions of the strike will hold for people who are filming overseas. The answer is yes. It
and
is.
most importantly, first and foremost, the showrunners of this show are writers. They are writers that got promoted to showrunner.
Yes.
They are writers. That is their trade. They are not actors that became directors. They are not actors that became producers like Rob McElhenney and that other guy, Wrexham, Deadpool himself, Ryan Reynolds. They are not actors that grew into producer roles. Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne are writers. That means that they are part of the WGA. They could not be writing on Rings of Power without being a member of the union. So first and foremost, they are union.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? So I guess we should hear a statement from them at some point. Somewhere.
Yeah, hopefully
there should be a statement. Okay.
We know it's sensitive all around. Now Cliff, let's change gears again. Why is this such a big deal? Well, the Writers Guild is a union, just like the longshoremen, just like farmers have, blue collar workers have had unions, and white collar workers have had unions. Hollywood is full of unions. Screen Actors Guild is a union. If you're an actor, you can join the thing. There's a Producers Guild. There's a Directors Guild. There's a Writers Guild. There's no Visual Effects Guild, unfortunately. So this is a union thing.
Not yet.
Here's the interesting thing, is that in 2008, during the last writer's strike, Amazon was not making movies or TV shows. Neither was Netflix. So these two production entities, three, Apple, Amazon Prime, and Netflix, did not exist as production studios when the last contract was negotiated.
Oh, okay.
So they are new players on the scene, and they don't. And Amazon has a weird relationship with unions. And
yes, that's also true. We've seen evidence of that in the past.
We have. Look, there are many articles. Here's one on Vice, which is about to declare bankruptcy, but whatever. Amazon repeatedly violated union-busting labor laws in the Federal National Labor Relations Board. And supposedly they may pay a big fine because they violated union-busting labor laws. And Cliff, we don't have to litigate the whole Hobbit scenario, but there is an anti-union Hobbit law on the books in New Zealand. And
that appeared during the time of the Hobbit production over 11 years ago. Yes.
And didn't we report, Cliff, that one of the reasons Amazon shot season 1 in New Zealand was because there was an anti-union law?
Yep. Yes, I think so. Yes. Wow. Look at this weird, this is a bit of a weird position to be in, because I always thought we'd be reporting on the show, oh, they're full steam ahead and they're doing all kinds of weird, crazy things in England. This is going to be interesting. And you know what? I thought that would be about the sum and substance of our reporting, because, no one's been invited on to visit the set. And now I realize nobody will be invited to visit the set because they really are going to have to shut down.
Yeah,
Wild.
no, the more you think about it, this becomes a very stressful situation. So, Cliff, so Amazon, why did New Zealand have an anti-union Hobbit law? Is because there was a law enacted before The Hobbit was made, where Warner Brothers said, basically, make sure that your country it does not approve of acting unions at
Yep.
federal law level. Otherwise, we
Yep.
walk. And so that's why it's called the Hobbit Law.
Yep.
So,
Isn't that weird? It was a union busting law to prevent workers from forming their own unions.
Amazon has a history of violating union busting labor laws. They don't want unions anywhere. They chose to film in New Zealand for season 1 because one of the reasons was because there was an anti-union law. So Amazon's like, cool, we don't have to worry about unions. And Cliff, do you know what happened because there wasn't a union?
What?
Amazon Studios says reports of unsafe set on Rings of Power are completely inaccurate. Turns out stunt workers'
Oh,
fury over
yes.
Lord of the Rings injuries, 2 brain surgeries. Cliff,
Yep.
2 brain surgeries.
Yep. Yep. 2 brain surgeries, serious injuries, and all because somebody isn't paying attention to the fine details.
And that's what
Oh,
unions offer. A
and
source,
that's true. That's
the New
true.
Zealand Herald reported that Dana Grant's injury, that is Galadriel's stunt double, was not
Hmm.
reported to WorkSafe, which is their government reporting
Yes.
agency, right? It says Grant's
Yes.
head injury was determined to be a mild concussion, but she ended up needing brain surgery that she crowdfunded for. Um,
Yes, she
Another,
did.
and Dana Grant wasn't the only one. Galadriel's other aquatic stunt woman was paid $500,000 for her brain injury.
Wow.
Alyssa Caldwell was Galadriel's stunt double for all the water scenes in episode 1 and 2 when she falls
Hmm.
off the raft and goes for a swim. Well, turns out Cadwell had a brain injury on a stunt gone wrong, and she was paid $500,000. Lord of the Rings has an extremely large amount of stunts, and risk analysis is performed at every stunt site, with every near miss and accidents recorded. Production has an injury rate of 0.068%, so less than a 1% injury rate on Rings of Power Season 1. But the ones that did get hurt required brain surgery.
Wow. What do you know about that? I wonder where that $500,000 payout came from. I mean, was that because of union protections?
No,
That she was
there's no
there,
unions in New Zealand.
there's no union protection at all. So I just wonder where that payout came from. Intriguing. Very intriguing. Well,
Well, but Cliff, I wanted to ask you because there's these 2 brain injuries
yeah,
for Galadriel specifically
yeah,
on Rings of Power. Whether it was whose fault, it doesn't matter. The problem is the injuries happened. It was a
yes,
non-union set.
yes.
How do we reconcile that with this post from Orlando Bloom just this weekend? A picture of him on a horse. And he says, when we were filming Lord of the Rings, I fell off a horse, got an x ray, and got told I broke a rib and that there was nothing that they could do. It was painful, but I'd been through worse. And then when I broke my back in 1998, I was told I would never walk again.
Whoa, I didn't know that
Mental
Orlando
health.
Bloom had ever broken his back. I never knew that.
Orlando Bloom
Wow.
says mental health is just as important as physical health, but for me, the two are pretty connected. So
Wow.
he posts this. He
Wow.
posts this as part of Mental Health Awareness Month. Cliff, how do we reconcile that Vigo broke his toe, Sean Astin cut his foot, and
Deeply, deeply.
and
Yes.
Orlando Bloom is saying that he broke his rib and broke his back and told he was never going to walk again.
But he said he broke his back in 1998,
They
right?
were filming in '98.
They started filming in early 99, didn't they?
No,
Um, but I don't think Orlando was implying that he broke his back on the set of Fellowship of the Ring. I think,
Okay.
but
We'll have
okay,
to do
yeah,
it. We'll have to check our
yeah,
dates. But how do we reconcile that
yeah.
Orlando broke it?
Matt says he did not break his back during LOTR filming,
Okay,
but
so
that's intriguing.
he broke his rib. Vigo broke his toe, and many other
Yeah.
things. Sean broke his.
Yes.
So how do we reconcile that? Is Amazon any worse than Peter Jackson was? No, because
No,
injuries just
no,
happen.
that's right.
That's part of filming Lord of the Rings. Why does it feel different, though? Cliff, why does it feel different?
Um,
That's what I'm trying
you,
to understand.
I think I'm struggling to understand that too. Um, well, if it wouldn't feel this way if we didn't have a sharp awareness of the union busting activities of MGM and New Line Cinema. Our awareness now of those things from 10, 11 years ago when The Hobbit was in production, that's still impacting people in New Zealand who are in production a decade later, huh? Hmm. Well, I think that I think it's really unfortunate that any big production company, especially one with deep, deep pockets, feels like they can't afford to let the workers unionize properly and have some proper presentation for themselves and their safety and their grievances and looking at procedures. You just got to look at things extra carefully. You know, when it first was reported that the stunt woman had gotten so badly hurt, I got a lot of people in New Zealand very upset with me on Twitter when I said, shut it down. Shut down the production now, immediately, until
You
you
said
check your
that.
safety. I did. And a lot of people who were working as craftspeople, painters, and sculptors in New Zealand were very pissed off at me because they said, do you know how much damage that would do to our livelihoods? That we would miss days and weeks of work just because they need to stop and reevaluate all their safety protocols. And I suddenly realized, wow, all these people are working down there without any union protections. And they would lose a lot of their livelihood if they were out of work for a couple of weeks. It's fascinating, isn't it?
And
But
that's what that
I wasn't proposing that they shut everything down permanently. I was just saying shut it down long enough to figure out why the stunt people are getting hurt so badly. And it was a controversial take. It was probably the single most controversial take I've ever had online, was to say that worker safety is more important than anything else. But without a union there and without the auspices of, you know, the people still getting paid properly, if they take emergency days off because of safety protocols, the union would guarantee they got paid a day
right.
rate anyways. So I get it.
The
I'm
most
starting to
important
get it
thing
now. Yeah, yeah.
that's a great input and insight. And Cliff, at the end of the day, a better contract for writers on TV shows produce a better Lord of the Rings?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, of course it will, because you're going to have the most important people on your team, the writers, feeling like they got their asses covered and they're actually valued and they retain value. If you want your workers who are valuable to feel like they retain value as personnel on your project, then you should make them feel valuable.
And it also lets them do the best work of their career without having to worry about what how am I going to pay for my kids' school lunch next month once this show ends. So
Exactly. Exactly.
a good writer's contract will give us better Lord of the Rings. Period.
Yeah.
A
Yes, it will.
no contract or a worse contract will give us worse Lord of the Rings of Power shows. It will. It won't it? It will.
We are going to have to watch this space very carefully and see if by next week, Tuesday, at 5 p.m., we are still reporting an active writer strike. And in between then, we will certainly have gotten confirmation if the Rings of Power season 2 is completely shut down, or even partially shut down, we will have confirmation of that news by this time next week. We must. We
So
must have that detail.
follow up question, Cliff.
Yeah.
With this writer strike and potentially shows getting shut down, do you think, and Neil Gaiman saying, unfortunately, he cannot promote his own show, Good Omens, does this mean that McKay and Payne will not show up to this weekend screenings? They're union.
Yeah.
They're not going to show up.
You know what? If the union has the production shut down in England, then they might as well come out to the United States and support the efforts of their award campaign.
But
They
Neil
might as well.
Gaiman is saying he cannot. Neil Gaiman is saying he cannot support promotion of the show.
But he's talking about promotion of the brand new show, and I am talking about Payne and McKay supporting a previous last year's show.
I think it gets too complicated from a union perspective. I think
Maybe so.
if they're on
Maybe
strike,
so.
they're on strike.
You know what? I am worried now in a way that I wasn't when we started this broadcast at 5 p.m. today. I'm worried about season 2 of Rings of Power and season 2 of The Sandman. Because, to be honest, I'm worried about season 2 of Andor, which they've already announced. So all these things, not to mention House of the Dragon, but all these really cool, interesting shows are going to suffer now because of this. This is going to be very weird.
And
very
a follow up again, folks. We showed you a photo of Chelsea, and we had some other friends at the Andor screening last night with Andy Serkis. You know who else was
before the strike started?
You know who else was there?
Who?
The writer Tony Gilroy.
Yeah.
And guess what? Guess what?
What?
When the lights came up at the end of the episode, and as they were taking their seats for the Q&A, the strike was called, and they got the text while on stage.
You're kidding.
Tony Gilroy
really?
And Andy Serkis got the text in front of an audience saying, "You are writers, and you are on strike."
Wow.
And we don't know exactly what was said in the room, but we can. The implication was, folks, this is going to be the last time you see us for a while. And the implication was Tony Gilroy was not going to work the next day. This was last night. He got the text in the middle of a Q&A.
I wish that Chelsea were here on our show so she could tell us right now.
I know. So next week we'll try to get her on the show, and she can tell us what exactly happened.
Of course.
So all these reasons, and this is why at the top of the show, folks, when I started the show, I said I hope Cliff's here because we need to have a conversation about this. And Cliff, this is hard conversations, but they need to happen. And writers.
What about the War of the Rohirrim?
So we have a
we have a separate piece of news about the War of the Rohirrim.
Yes, according
might
to
not
War
be
of
related to the strike, right? Okay.
According to what we've heard of War of the Rohirrim, the as I explained earlier in the show, movies are different for writers than television shows. And when the way a movie works is the script writer turns the script in at the beginning, and then they're done. The writer's done with their work. That's happened on War of the Rohirrim. And it is our understanding that all of the writing and all of the voice recording and all the acting are done for Rings of Power, for War of the Rohirrim.
Okay, well that's helpful. That's very helpful. But that means the animators.
No impact.
Okay, but the animators are hard at work.
The animators are hard at work, but good news, next month, Cliff. Next month in June in France, the Annecy Animated Film Festival will have the first look at Ring's War of the Rohirrim.
Oh, that's going to be exciting. That's a remarkable film festival, and it is unique because it's for a celebration of just the animated arts and the animated medium in all of its forms, including digital, hand-drawn, and of course stop motion animation, made famous by Henry Selick and The Nightmare Before Christmas, and a lot of other things as well. But boy, oh boy, that is a film festival that I would love to be at. And it really will be the first time that anybody on Earth has seen really like close to finished production materials for the War of the Rohirrim. I'm excited about that.
If you have a chance, if you live in Europe and have a chance to possibly get tickets to the Annecy Animated Film Festival, Sony Pictures will be showing a short film of the Spider-Verse.
Ooh, I'm excited about that. I'm so excited.
There will be a work in progress of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, and Warner Brothers will show the first footage of War of the Rohirrim by Kenji Kamiyama, along with Rick and Morty, a 10-year retrospective. So the first footage,
that's so cool, isn't
and
it?
Cliff, it looks like Torn might have people on site to give us the report as it's happening. So
I would love that. That would be great if we could get spies on the ground,
Cliff,
in France.
What I want to ask you, if they're going to show footage of War of the Rohirrim next month in France,
yes,
what do you think this means for Comic-Con?
That means they're going to show even more. That means they will probably show the same footage, or they'll expand on that and show even more at San Diego Comic-Con. I think it's very safe now. It's safe for us to speculate that there's going to be some big reveals over the summer for War of the Rohirrim. I'm so excited. So excited.
What do you expect based on Warner Brothers' past history? Do you expect a trailer, more than a trailer, maybe the whole intro scene? What do you expect?
I expect them to bring Brian Cox and Miranda Otto out on stage. Live on stage. Yes.
I just realized this is Brian Cox's first project after Succession ends. This will be his first. Brian Cox at Comic-Con would blow my mind.
Wouldn't that be great?
Blow my mind.
Wouldn't that be great?
Brian Cox at Comic-Con? Oh, man. I need to meet that guy. I want to shake his hand. I want to shake Brian Cox's hand. Not just because he was in Red Dragon and he was the original Hannibal Lecter, but his turn in Succession.
He's been in lots of great movies. Yes.
Oh man, Brian Cox in Succession is my favorite show on TV right now. So him being Helm Hammerhand, which is what Helm's Deep is named after.
Yeah.
The guy from Succession is Helm Hammerhand.
Isn't it great? Isn't it great? It's going to be great. I'm excited. Every time somebody says, oh, we're going to reveal some really cool stuff at Comic-Con, that just turns on the lights in my tree in such a big way. Honestly, I didn't want that to sound so funny, but it really is cool. It's so cool. And I'm jealous of anybody who gets to go to the Annecy Animated Film Festival in France.
Annecy Animated Film Fest is next month in June, and we look forward to whatever morsels of information we can get out of Weta Workshop's animated,
so
Japanese animated War of the Rohirrim.
We are reporting that the anime film War of the Rohirrim is not being affected at all by the current writer strike.
Correct.
And we're also reporting today, with the caveat that is not confirmed yet via any official.
We have asked the studio for comment. We have not received it as of the show,
not confirmed yet.
We have, based on the rules of the WGA writer strike and the rules that every member of the writers union received, they are all to walk off set. And we have confirmed that Helen Chang and Jennifer Hutchinson have walked off set.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Isn't that crazy pants? Isn't it crazy pants?
Cliff, I have one more thing. One more piece of news, Cliff.
Please.
I don't know if you heard this. Amazon has announced that their newly rebranded free streaming service, FreeVee, that used to be called IMDb TV.
Yeah.
They are adding all of their original shows to
Oh, okay.
FreeVee with commercials.
Okay. Oh, so that means Prime Video shows are going to be available in another format.
Prime Video shows will be able to be watched with commercials
Right.
without a Prime subscription on
Okay.
FreeVee.
Maybe that means more people will get to see Rings of Power who didn't want to have a Prime membership.
Well, this is what I want to ask you, Cliff.
Yeah.
If they put Rings of Power for free with commercials on a different network,
Yeah.
will that improve their 30%, 37% completion rate? Or would that reduce further their completion rate? Is Rings of Power a better experience with commercials?
No, it's not. No, no, no. I have nothing else to say about that, but I wouldn't sit through those commercials. I just wouldn't do it.
Here's the interesting thing, Cliff. Um,
You're so you're so diabolically funny
no, but
sometimes.
here's why I'm
Justin, you
asking.
really are
It says
funny.
starting May 26th, the first 3 episodes of the Amazon original, "The Summer I Turned Pretty," will be available for free. Only the first 3 episodes
Okay.
of an Amazon show.
Okay.
So they're
So
already deciding to only put the first couple episodes on this free series. So
oh,
free
so
service.
that's going to be the big bait and switch.
Yes. Does
You
that
get to
work
watch
for
a few
Rings of Power?
episodes, and you'll get sucked in 2 or 3 episodes, then boom, you have to subscribe to watch the rest.
Let me ask you this, Cliff. Are the first 2 episodes of Rings of Power so good that they would inspire you? If you hadn't seen the show, would they inspire you to subscribe to continue watching?
Yeah, if I hadn't seen Numenor yet. Yeah, I think. Wow, I don't know. I don't know, dude. You're asking me to. You're come
It's
on, come on, dude. Come
it's
on,
you
come on.
know, they have a show on Amazon called Diabolical.
Yes.
I don't have any other word for it. If they put the first 2 episodes of Rings of Power, which they're showing at a special screening this weekend, on their FreeVee service, and then encouraging you to subscribe to Prime Video for $15 a month or $10 a month or whatever it is to
Right.
to continue watching the series, and
Oh
the
my.
first paid episode you get is the Numenor stuff. It's not good.
Do you know what?
I don't
Look,
know. I don't know.
I look.
That's
There's
all.
look.
That's all I have, Cliff. That's all I have. I'm exhausted. Like I
Thank
don't.
you, Justin,
I'm not
for setting
hating.
me up like that.
Look, I'm not hating. I want to love this show. I want
Of
to
course,
love,
and so
and
did I. So did I.
I love everybody involved in the show. McPain
Yeah,
are wonderful,
clearly.
authentic fans. They really know Tolkien. They really love Tolkien. The
Clearly.
writers, we met Helen and Jennifer. They stopped by the booth at Comic-Con last year. I think they bought Kelly's book. Like, these are wonderful people, and all the actors are just acting their butts off.
Yeah, and they're great. They're great performers.
But there
It's,
are
you know,
things that this show demand. There are things that any Tolkien project demands
yeah,
attention for, close attention. And the most important thing for Tolkien fans is writing, because it all starts with the page. It all starts with Tolkien's pen. So with the writer's strike, this is almost a worst case scenario for the quality of season 2. It is. Like, if
yes,
any other
yeah,
union went on
yeah.
strike, I wouldn't be as nervous. But the writers
get
on
that.
strike, I'm very nervous.
I understand your assessment, and I'm not going to pick it apart because that's a very sound assessment. Very sound. And
And Nerd of the Rings in the chat room, thank you for agreeing with me. So many great folks involved in the show and at the studio. We've made some wonderful friendships on the marketing and PR teams as well. Everyone is good at their job.
oh yeah, there's some wonderful, wonderful people. You just got to get your Anatar right, and you've just got to stop gassing the audience with these bizarre mysteries and just tell us the bloody story that Professor Tolkien had laid out for us. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. Hey, it looks like we're at the end of another wonderful broadcast here at Torn Tuesday. Another week of mischief and mayhem, and boy, did we report on some surprises. I never thought that something so unexpected would happen overnight, and then we would have to say right here on the live stream, oops, it looks like the Rings of Power might be shut down right now because of a labor strike. This is a very unexpected twist in an ever-thickening plot.
The opposite of an unexpected journey. It's an unexpected stay home.
Unexpected mischief. Very unexpected. Well, no.
Cliff, the chat room is demanding an answer, Cliff.
No, there's not an answer until there's an answer. Do you know what? You're going to appreciate it. When we finally get there, you'll all appreciate it. When I get there, I'll spend 20 minutes online reading it to you. I'll read it to all of you, okay? We'll do it that way. It'll be my own little personal audiobook, a little read-along of my review. Okay, you guys are hilarious, and I appreciate you all. Thanks for being here. You are a wonderful audience, and you're not letting me get away with anything, are you? That's what I love about you guys. You're not letting me get away with it. So wonderful to have you all here. Justin, thank you for starting the show promptly and with such elegance, and I really appreciate that. Once a month, we're probably going to be scheduling live appearances of Torn Tuesday so that the audience can come in, and other surprise guests who are there in the Los Angeles, Hollywood area can wander in and surprise everyone.
Yeah,
online.
Maybe we do it next week and we get Chelsea over and we just have a nice conversation about.
I'd love that. I would love that. It's been a really great chat, and I am hoping that we get official press release or really official corporate statement from Prime Video about how the strike is or is not negatively impacting Rings of Power, currently in production in the United Kingdom, all over the UK. And let's keep our ears to the ground. Let's keep our nose to the grindstone and our ears to the ground. Why don't we do that? All right? Ladies and gentlemen, it's about time that we sign off. It's 7 o'clock. It is only 3 in the morning in London. You guys are amazing. Thanks for staying up so late. UK, our audience in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, we want to say thank you for staying up into the wee hours of the morning to join us on our live show. I really appreciate that. And we're going to be here next Tuesday, as always, at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Here on Torn Tuesday, you can look for me, Clifford Broadway, online on Instagram and Twitter at QuickBeam2000, and the rest of us at the One Ring Net. Just take out the dot. We're at the One Ring Net on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, doodly-doodly-doo-doo, Instagram, all the way down that list of things. And be sure to stop by our Discord servers and join us.
It's been so active today as everybody's sharing tons of tweets from tons of actors and writers and everything else. Our Discord is so active right now.
Please join us there.
It's a much healthier place to talk than Twitter.
Yes. Hey, I'm looking at Blue Sky. Probably going to start a membership with the Blue Sky.
Yeah, I want to get in. Anna Maria got in. Our friend Anna Maria got in. Where's our invite?
Yeah, let's get in. Let's get on my Blue Sky. I want to do that so we can have some nice alternatives. All right, you guys just take care of yourselves and look after one another, okay? I'm going to see you right here next week at 5 p.m. Pacific time here for another round of Torn Tuesday. That guy right there is Justin. This guy right here is Clifford. And the little cat, Mithrandir, he's over there begging for dinner. So I better get going, all right? You guys are wonderful. Thanks again for being with us. We'll see you next Tuesday. Until then, I like to say good night and good luck. And sometimes, buenos noches y buena suerte. Bye, everybody.